Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the third episode of the Lichess 45-45 League. Today we are going to have a look at yet another very fascinating and crazy game. This time it was a clash between DRacoxVitae versus his opponent dinomoomoo. Today on the menu we have got the very infrequently seen Ponziani opening. Very fun game to watch. Normally quite chaotic stuff emerges from this opening. My favorite lines go with d5, bishop b5, d4, knight e5, queen g5, and then all the chaos is already on the board in full motion. Note that on knight takes c6 we have got queen takes b5. This is not necessarily best theory, by the way, for either side, rather for white, but yeah, queen g5, queen d5, these are both very fun lines. Queen a4 is also a move here instead of bishop b5, but again this is looking like funky business. I think here there's a pawn sack line that I really like, which goes like this. Not quite, because see, bishop c4 hurts. Maybe bishop d6 hurts. Then we do that, we'll lose. Yeah, I can't quite recall how this works. Computer's preference is queen d6 here, but if that's the case, then it's probably wiser not to take on e4 at all, and simply just continue with developing. Anyway, the game featured knight f6, which is the more conservative line, but I should be very careful with what I'm saying about being conservative, because once again, all hell is going to break loose in just a split second. White played d5. And to my knowledge, theory here was knight e7 followed by knight e5, d6, knight docks back, and so on. That's what I thought was theory. And then dinomoomoo went like, nay, brother, this is time to sack a piece and start playing like Morphe. And I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. And what's more is that I have explored this variation a little bit with the computer, and I have found some really fascinating stuff that were left behind the scene rather. I will show you what exactly I'm talking about. There is no other logical way to continue the game than accepting the piece offer, especially because there is no proper way to defend the f2 pawn. So capture was played, bishop takes f2 check. Please note that knight takes f2, which is the greedy way to attack the queen and the rook, is an absolute waste of space. After queen d5, black doesn't have enough here, although again a similar motive to what I'm about to show you. Keep black in the game here with queen e7, but more on that in a second. So instead check, king up, forcing the king out onto a very awkward square so that now the bishop can't develop, and then dropping the bishop back. The big difference between this line and taking with the knight first is that in this variation we force the king out to an awkward square and then we retreat to b6, thereby still maintaining the threat but keeping the bishop safe, and at the same time guaranteeing that the white king gets stuck in the middle. And actually, for the record, the game continuation here was takes on c6, which is almost forcingly losing to exactly what happened in the game. And in that regard, this was a really high quality game in terms of how white managed to convert his advantage from here on out. But check this out, bishop b6, queen d5. Looks like an instantaneous knockout blow, because it's hitting this piece and hitting these two with a fork. So you would think, yeah, nah, game over. Not quite. Knight f2. Yeah, knight f2, g1, and that's where the craziness begins. So here, instead of taking back on c6 and allowing white to take on e5, thereby denying castling, black actually has this amazing gambit move, kingside castle, sacking yet another piece for the mere sake of completing development and having a safe king. I will turn the board around here to actually fully appreciate the beauty of this concept. And best of all is that we have no clear threat whatsoever, clear threats to be counting on or to reckon with in this position. We are simply building up the position. It's mind-blowingly amazing that sometimes you get to play chess, and whilst I would definitely not like to mesh together different level of stuff, this is the type of chess that AlphaZero is playing. Random material sacrifices, and you just have huge counterplay. Actually, the line I looked at was not queen f6, but rook b8, queen back c6, and then queen f6 here. Same story though, no immediate threats. Black currently is threatening with knight g4, queen f2. That feels like an eternity when you are 2 pieces down. But it's actually totally legit because white is struggling so badly to get out with his pieces, and the king is randomly sitting in the middle. And the longer you leave these types of positions on for the computer, the more accurately it will tell you who is ahead. And more often than not, you will find that it's always the side who is on the attack. So here my variation stopped after knight a3, knight g4, king back, d5, and knight back in, followed by bishop takes d4, cd, queen d, which yet again is a beautiful position, an excellent testament how a developed army, irrespective of how many pieces of wood we are talking about, always defeats an undeveloped army with significantly more pieces of wood. In this case, none of these guys are going to be participating, and in fact that one either, in the game. This is just a picture perfect example of how material can be totally unimportant in a game of chess. Look at it, the knight can't move without being captured. Bishop can't move anywhere on the diagonal without getting actually queen is mate in one. Bishop obviously can't move, rook can't move, rook b1 is my best rook move available. So white is 2 pieces up and is apparently dead lost. Not an everyday sight by any stretch of the imagination. Let's see how the computer defeats my rook move. Simply knight d3, creating a threat of taking there, and also a threat of knight b4 check. Wow. Some stuff. This is just too good. Too good. So yeah, that would have been a really awesome opportunity for black here to play absolute nuts. But again, to play chess like this requires just incredible imagination, and you have to be very brave and bold. And I'm not saying that black wasn't, because by going for this line, he already announced on move 5 that I'm brave and bold. But when you start playing in that style, very often you find that the best way to continue is to add even more fuel fire. And really, b takes c6 here is not really adding any value to the position other than opening up this diagonal. But this is a bit too lame of a threat. And white handled it beautifully and very simply too by playing queen a4, which is an ultimate example of a defense and an attack at the same time. And as I said, from here on out, we are looking at an almost forcing variation. Knight e2, castles, what else? Takes, 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 f2 hanging, e5, trying to counterpunch in the center. Perfect play by black, despite the circumstances. Queen takes, rook e8, queen takes, rook, queen takes, and king takes f2. And this is the time to stock take. White has got a rook, a bishop, and a knight for the queen. Plenty enough material. So from here on, the only thing white needs to achieve is sound coordination among the pieces and a safer spot for the king. And as soon as that happens, it's essentially game over. See you later, alligator. Bishop f5, bishop e3 was played. Perfect location for the bishop. Later on, bishop c5 and knight d4 can be played. A similar imbalance of material, by the way, can be seen some open Ruy Lopez variations, including the Dilworth attack. You are that way inclined, I would highly recommend you to check that out. That line is actually quite full of fire too, and a very fascinating line, exact same pawn structure. Rook b8, b4, once again a very good blockading move, so now these pawns are all blocked on white. a5, bishop c5, excellent chess. White is really playing really solidly here. And after queen e4, this was the time to put the icing on the cake. The only plus of this move is that it creates a check threat here, and occasionally it allows black double up on the e to attack whatever they can find on the e file. But despite of that, actually the best move here would have been bishop e2, which not only stops the power of the check, but also allows white to regroup like so, which means that now my piece coordination is 99% complete, and I'm ready to drop back and celebrate victory. So that would have been pretty much a knockout blow. Instead of white, he played rook c1. This is a little bit timid, and it actually takes me to a very basic chess principle that when there is a threat on the board, it's always a good idea to try to handle it with the least valuable piece, because now essentially we are wasting the power of a whole rook on stopping a check. We have used the bishop instead, and by putting the bishop here, we sort of would have killed two birds with one stone, because the bishop wanted to develop to e2 anyway, but now it's cutting out this check. Anyway, rook c1, g5, aggression is needed. Very good move, by the way, in my book, because whenever you are down in material and it looks like we are about to lose, the only way to turn stuff around is relentless aggression. Because aggression equals pressure, and people err under pressure. The competence. h3, stopping g4, logical chess takes. I consider this move to be somewhat unnecessary, because yeah, on occasion the a pawn can become a pain. Having said that, the whole idea was to attack it, but once again, that pawn is neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things, because now again white has achieved full development and almost perfect coordination. g4 take, and here rook a1 would have been the best way to continue, because by doing this we would have eliminated or traded off the most powerful black piece, which was the rook, creating the spin. If the rook chooses to stay, after rook a8, king g7, bishop d4 check wins the rook. Note how I can't go on the white square, because then the knight fork is going to net tremendous amount of material to white. Instead, rook c3 was a little bit too soft, but still logical. Wants to bring the rook up and start attacking the king on these three squares, depending on how and when we can get there. So I'm not really going to blame white for this. Bishop takes, rook takes, check. Now just a little bit of egg dance. Make sure that white king doesn't get perpetual, beautifully walled in around by white pieces, and now it's white time to start launching an attack against the very bare black king. Bishop g1, queen man back to h4, h3, chasing the queen away. Queen takes, queen f4 check. Bishop f2, perfect. Note how now the queen can't come back obviously here. Two bishops are covering every single square here on the third. Now the rook can begin to hassle whoever he decides to hassle. Bishop d3. It's actually beautiful to see how once fending off the attack with the superior material, white immediately switches gears and goes into the attack. And the pieces that two moves before were looking like lame defenders are all of a sudden the best attackers. Please note that in this position the queen had to evacuate, because rook h3 was going to trap queen down on h1. And once evac happened, all the white pieces are coming out further and further out. It's beautiful to watch. And from here on, it's actually almost spotless the way how white executes this final attack against the black king. King f7, bishop check, king f6, bishop takes h5. Note that whilst this wins material, the primary reason why this is a good move is because it creates the threat of check and further material gains, e.g. c5 check, the king can't drop back, because then rook discovered check wins the queen. And if the rook instead, oh, did I miss a mate there even? Oh, actually rook g4 followed by bishop h4 is a mate there. Wow. So yeah, this is I will show you, because this is beautiful. This is when the bishops come to life, and that's mighty scary. So actually the main point of bringing the rook back to g4 was not to win the queen, but to shield the bishop. And then check, up. Now king here is mate. The king needs to go up. Up again. King up. And now I've got mate here. What a sweet mate is that. And if the king goes up here, then rook g3 back, king f8, and rook e8 is the mate. That coordination among the two rooks and the two bishops is just mind-blowing. Like, it's just so beautiful to watch. So yeah, that was the point of taking on h5. I'm not sure how much of it was seen by DRacoxVitae, but good on him for sensing the right move. Rook takes f2 was played. In my opinion, an excellent counter chance to sort of stir the pot. For example, here, quite know. Okay, never mind. Bishop there, check, check, check. Up. There was a tactic somewhere here. I looked at where rook takes f2 would have one material. Was it third? Oh yes, it was right here. Rook takes h5. That's what I wanted to show you. That instead of playing the consistently attacking chess here by bringing pieces into the attack, getting greedy and taking this pawn would have turned everything upside down, going to check, check. Amazingly, the king has no safe squares. King e2 loses to this, and king g1 drops the bishop, which is not a loss, but all of a sudden the tide has turned, and I would much rather be black there. So once again, hats off to DRacoxVitae for chasing the correct target, which is the king. So back to this business, rook sack, and just a couple of more checks before the rooks and the bishop go in for the final coup de grace. King f4, rook check, bishop back. Awesome stuff. So now I can attack from the sides, but white can also transfer the rook onto this one to the f file, and like king here, rook here, and then eventually electric fence mate on the h file is also on the agenda. Now g3 is also a cute move. I like this a lot. But what it does do is that it allows a flight square for the king, so that I can immediately bring the rook across here. It also takes away an important square from the king. c5, rook e6, awesome move. Note how white tightens the noose move by move around the neck of black king. Now according to the computer it's force mate, but yeah, sort of. f2, beautiful move attacking the queen, and now the king is about to join the fray here. Again, you can see that there are fewer and fewer squares available for lordship black king. c4, and this is where the game could have ended by check, forcing the king to put h5, and this is truly awesome. Watch this move, c6. What a beauty. And now there is a mate threat with rook f5 check, king g4, and rook check, and it's unstoppable. So to demonstrate the idea, d4, rook check, king here, and rook check, and rook mate. The reason why we had to move the rook on g6 first is because rook f5 have obstructed the view of the bishop towards g6, and so black would escape only to be dead lost in this endgame, which is almost identical to what happened. Okay. So once again, queen c1 check, king g2, c4, e5. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's actually where things went out of hand a little bit. So here, rook check and swinging to c6 would have been the thematic way. Instead, he set up a different mating pattern here by putting. And once again, I must say, hats off for white. These are beautiful and far from obvious mating patterns and checkmate nets that he needed to visualize, e.g. he d2 allows mating 1. So black had to just push one of his pawns, allowing the rook check, followed by a rook check, and then the king is plenty close enough to mop up all three pawns with the aid of the rook, and black resigned. A fairly consistent and rather one-sided battle. I think that black used up all his gunpowder in the early stages of the opening, and sadly here couldn't quite live up to the requirement of the position by dropping the bishop back to b6 and leave on that initiative, and instead he had to settle here for a material imbalance that was rather easy to convert from white's point of view with the two bishops, knight, queen versus bishop, queen. It was just a bit too much for black to handle, but once again, I would like to credit white here a lot, because a lot of players, especially on this level, no offense, would find it very, very difficult to actually convert this without stumbling into some nasty tactics, and white converted it without any blunders whatsoever. In fact, hardly any inaccuracies either. It was just a clear-cut, consistent attack, first defense into attack onto the black king. Really, really beautiful example, by the way, of piece mobility and coordination when attacking a lone king. If anything, I wish he had played here this beautiful rook check, followed by rook here. A very tricky find, but beautiful nonetheless. Beautiful nonetheless. Alrighty, thank you guys very much for tuning in and following me through the Lichess 45 games. We just marked the halfway with this game. There are 3 more to come, quite exciting games too. So make sure that you stay tuned and watch the remaining games and analyze them with me. Thanks for tuning in. I will be back with the rest soon. Thank you. Bye.